So, I don't know if you heard what happened the other week, James.
There's been a lot going on.
There's been a lot going on. There was one story that really grasped my attention, per se. So, do you know who Deloitte is?
They are a large multinational consulting firm.
Yeah,
Deloitte,
so they're one of the big four. Obviously, in Australia, we just have kind of a couple of oligarchic industries.
Yeah.
Obviously, got like the supermarket industry dominated by a few big firms. And then you have the banks, the finance sector, you have the big four. Mm-hmm. And same in consultancy. So you have the big four consultancy firms.
Do you reckon there's only four? Do you reckon they agree to an equal power sharing split?
I think so, yeah.
It's like 25% of the power each, but not going to let anyone else in.
Yeah.
Not 3, not 5, but 4 just works perfectly. But so who are they? We've got like PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte,
and there's two others.
KPMG,
yes.
off the top of my head.
And
the name of the fourth one.
Yeah. So Deloitte is a British multinational corporation that provides professional services to government and the private sector, such as legal, accounting and tax services, as well as auditing.
Mm. And what do they do? Can you explain to me, a layman?
I just explained what they do.
How do they make money in Australia?
So they provide services to the private sector, to other corporations per se, that obviously give them advice on legal and tax methods and strategies. Mm-hmm. They provide services to the government. So over the past 30 years, as we've seen the neoliberal era go forward, mm-hmm. we've seen privatisation and outsourcing of the government sector, of the mm-hmm. public sector, to companies like Deloitte, where instead of having a public sector and bureaucrats and public servants that actually run the government and provide services for the government, the kind of machinery that keeps the government moving mm-hmm. and ticking over and providing these services, they outsource it to private companies because it's more efficient and cost effective. However, as we've been finding out mm-hmm. for the past couple of decades, it costs more money, it's not as efficient.
Of course. And I'd imagine the kind of policy recommendations that these large companies recommend to the government, for example, would primarily benefit them.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago we had the PwC scandal. Mm-hmm. I won't go into the details of it. We mm-hmm. did do a segment on it.
We did.
PwC was basically building the tax policy for the Australian federal government, was giving them advice on the policy, mm-hmm. how to carry it out, and then they were selling the kind of backdoor access to the corporations to how to get around the tax policy.
Yeah.
So they had a hand in each pocket.
Awfully convenient. And they are, I distinctly remember when we did a segment looking at the biggest donors to the two major parties.
PwC was on.
PwC was on both sides, actually. Yeah.
So it just came out, James, the other week that Deloitte was auditing the Australian government. And this was a report for the Department of Employment and Workplace Relations. And so in this report, they were going over and auditing it, and their final recommendations of the report were filled with multiple mistakes and plagiarism generated by AI.
Oh, no.
Yes. So what I found interesting, James, is these mistakes are commonly known as hallucinations, where AI generates misleading or false references and footnotes, and because it lacks data on the topic. Mm-hmm. So it really takes the intelligence out of artificial intelligence.
So it's just A.
Yeah, it's just artificial.
It's just A.
Yeah, so these are known as hallucinations, AI hallucinations. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the report was an evaluation of the system used to impose penalties on welfare recipients. Mm. And this report cost taxpayers $440,000 Australian dollars.
Not bad.
Close to $500,000. And so it was a 200-page report that took 8 months to deliver. And if it wasn't for an academic at Sydney University, these egregious fabrications would have been left unchecked.
That is shocking.
So it's come to light that in the report, AI fabricated footnotes, mm-hmm. references, multiple typos in the reference list, and made up a quote from a federal court judgment.
Wow.
And in fact, in one of the AI-generated references, it quoted an Australian law academic where it got her last name wrong and attributed a made-up book and quote to her.
Not bad. That's full on. So what were they doing for 8 months?
I don't know.
Because that sounds like the kind of thing where it's,
you could get ChatGPT to generate it in an evening.
Well, that's what I mean. So maybe the night before they got the money, forgot about it.
Yeah.
And then the night before they were like, shit, we need to have this delivered by tomorrow.
Yeah. So
insert it to ChatGPT and that's what you get.
So Deloitte has attributed this error to staff layoffs. So potentially layoffs for AI. Maybe they were
course.
laying off staff and getting more AI to complete the tasks, and then the AI was generating these fallacies, and then they just got stuck in this loop.
Wow. But that's absolutely terrifying.
It is.
Because what happens if it's like policy recommendation made by AI, destroy all humans? You're like, well, that's not good. But at the end of the day, obviously the controversy of using these consulting firms and outsourcing, analysis and research to develop policies, for example, the whole issue is that, well, they're going to do what's in their interests. Why doesn't the government do that?
Yes.
Obviously, we know the reasons why. But even then, this gives them even less legitimacy because they're not even doing it.
Yeah,
they're
that's
just
right.
typing it into AI. So you could just have someone in the government do the same thing and have the same mistakes.
As I've said, James, we've talked about this before, it would be really lucrative to open a consultancy firm, use ChatGPT, and just get a really great contract with the federal government.
It would be. Maybe we start up Left Hook Consulting.
Yeah, well, speaking of the kind of money...
That is terrifying,
Speaking of the money involved, obviously this report was valued at 440,000 Australian dollars. And just last financial year, Deloitte recorded a $2.5 billion turnover.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
And we have spoken about this earlier on the podcast, about the really sad development where the public sector, is just being privatised more and more, and these skills are being lost to actually run government properly and being outsourced to private corporations like this.
And once they go, I guess they don't come back.
No, these skill
how do you
sets
get
are
that
lost.
back?
Yeah. It's actually, I find it quite upsetting and sad, because then what happens is it justifies kind of right-wing populists to come in and say, look how inefficient the government is, let's cut more public servant jobs, but all they do is outsource it to multinational corporations, and then we lose more and more of the government services that make a society functionable.
Absolutely. And it's even more of a double whammy again, because we're not even getting people. Even if the government did this same thing, I have the exact same issue, because we're not actually getting human beings to develop policy.
That's right. And James, it's also just showing you that it's not just these multinational consultancy firms, it's AI, Silicon Valley billionaires and corporations that are now profiteering from this.
Yeah, full on. I think, I have a very nasty feeling, ominous feeling, that we're going to be seeing a lot more of this in the future. I think this is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg.
That's
so
right.
to speak.
And
like you said, it leads into that classic right-wing political tactic, which maybe we'll get onto a bit later on, of just, this service sucks, let's make life worse for everyone.
Yeah.
And then you get out of power,
Yeah.
the other team gets voted in, and then you just complain about it, get voted in again, and just the cycle repeats. So you just make life worse for everyone, keep the political cycle going.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, I had a quote here from Jeff Rich, and I thought this was worth pointing out. So
Shout out to Jeff Rich.
Jeff Rich is a former Australian bureaucrat that worked in the Victorian public sector for a number of decades. He's wrote a book that's very critical of the decimation of the Australian public sector and what he saw working there. And I'll just finish on this quote because I thought it kind of perfectly represented this case of Deloitte. So he said that the icicles have formed over the last 30 years as the state has been colonised by party political marketing machines. A change in the way of governing has frosted the glass. Hard, obscure icicles have appeared. Talking points spoken by numberless, witless advisors. A loss of capability in political leadership. The rise of the merchant elite and its fawning companies. The consultocrats. The cannibalisation of the university. The impoverishment of public debates.
Wow, that is incredibly well written.
Yeah.
What a beautiful analogy. Yeah.
Jeff's an incredible writer.
Yeah.
However, his book does kind of talk upon that theme of the decay of the public sector. So I thought this Deloitte story and his...
That perfectly encapsulates.
Yeah, it really encapsulated it.
Yeah, goodness. Well, I'm looking forward to the AI-powered future, Jordan. It's good. That's why everyone, when you ask ChatGPT for something, you always say please and thank you. Yeah. And just hopefully they'll remember you in the future.